So today we're going to work on something that we've actually done before, but we did it in TinkerCAD. We're going to rebuild the Shachihoko, but we're going to make it in Blender this time. So it's going to be the same thing that we've done before, but showing you how you can use the tools in Blender to do the same type of thing we did in TinkerCAD. So what I've done here is I have opened up a brand new project, and I am just going to turn something on so that you can see which keystrokes I'm using. So down here at the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to see which clicks I'm making as well as which numbers on the keypad I'm pressing. First thing that I'm going to do is I do not need anything that's already in this screen. So I'm going to select the camera, the cube, and the light. We don't need that because we're not animating, we're just working on building here. I'm going to hold down X and I'm going to delete all of that. Next thing, I need to get my lion and my fish, or my tiger and my fish, into here. So I'm going to go import. I've already downloaded the files and stuck them in a folder in my computer. And as you can see, we are probably going to want to resize these. So I'm going to press S to scale, and I'm going to bring my fish down a little bit. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the tiger file. Tiger's a bit more of a reasonable size though, so I think that actually works quite nicely. Looking at the front here, looking at the side, yeah, that's probably good. What I do want to do, however, is I do want to rotate this. So we are going to want to rotate. I believe we're going to want to go around the z-axis, and I want to go -90. There we go. So what you can actually do when you press rotate is you can actually specify if you want it to be rotating around the x-axis, which is this blue axis here, around the z-axis, which is blue, around the x-axis, which is red, or the y-axis, that is green, but is actually head-on for us when we're in front view. So what I did is I pressed R to rotate, then I pressed Z to force it to rotate in the Z-axis, and instead of having to manually move it, I can actually type in a number. So if I type 90, it'll rotate it 90 degrees. I can keep going. Oh. But if you change the number, it'll actually change what's up there as well. So I want it to be at 90 degrees. If I wanted to be at 180 degrees, I could type in 180, and I just have to make sure I delete afterwards. Same with 270. But I want to leave it where it is. If you do something and you decide, no, I don't like that change, instead of left-clicking out of it, you can actually right-click out of it, and it'll go back to what you had before. So here I've got both of my models, and I can see they're about the right sizes for each other. I might need to scale the lion's head a little bit. Now, in order to delete stuff, what I'm going to need is I'm going to need a cube. This is going to work very similar to the cube holes that we used in Thingiverse. So that's really small compared to mine. So I'm going to scale it up first. I'm going to do my cat first. If you want to move stuff around without having to click the move tool, you can do that. But you can also press G to grab an object, and it helps if it's selected when you do that. So what I've done here is I'm just grabbing this so that I am moving it so it overlaps with most of my tiger's body. Then I also see, I kind of want this to be a little bit longer. There's different ways I could do this. I could lengthen it by going into edit mode, selecting the vertices over here, and then I could just move these vertices out with grab as well. Same thing you did with rotate. Like if you find you're going off at an angle and you don't want it to, you can actually press X to force it to only move along the x-axis. You'll also notice that I turned on X-ray view here. The reason I did that is because there's actually two vertices behind this as well. I wanted to make sure I grabbed those two. And I'm going to do the same thing up front. I'm going to grab those. I'm going to hit X so it only moves along the X, and I'm going to move it up to about where the head is. Now the next thing I want to do is I actually want to get rid of all of this stuff in the tiger that I've overlapped. There is no hole function in Blender like there is in TinkerCAD, but there is the Boolean function, which is basically what the holes do in TinkerCAD. It's just calling it by a different name, giving it its actual proper functional name. So what I want to do is I want to pick my tiger, which means I need to go out of edit mode, back into object mode, so I can select that particular object. What did I turn off? I turned off that. There we go. So I want to select that object so that I just have the tiger right now. I'm going to go down to the tiger and I'm going to go add Boolean, which is right here. It's in the second column, third down if you're using the latest version of Blender, which right now should be 8.2. Now, the Boolean automatically doesn't look like it's done much, but that's okay. What I want, I believe I want difference for this one. I've already selected my tiger, but now I want to select the cube. Yes, that's right. And what I've done here now is I've given a modifier that anything that the cube is overlapping in the tiger, it's going to get rid of. Now, if I move the tiger around right now, its shape is going to come back. It's actually going to move where the cutoff point is. So I need to apply this Boolean modifier. And now you'll see that I just have the tiger cut as if it were a hole in TinkerCAD. Now, this doesn't do everything that I want it to do, so I'm going to grab with G again, and I'm going to move the square down. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to apply a Boolean modifier. I'm going to make sure it's set to difference. And then I'm going to click the eyedropper and click on the cube so that it tells me that I'm cutting my tiger based off of the cube. And then I'm going to apply that again. And now I've got my tiger head nice and easy. Now you'll see that the cursor still stays where it was originally. That's okay. Don't worry about that too much right now. You can do other Boolean modifiers, like you could have done intersect. What intersect will do is it will only save the stuff that's on the inside of the cube instead of the outside. So for this one, we really want to use difference. Is that going to do what I want it to do? No, it's not. Never mind that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab my tiger head and I'm going to move it down a bit. Now, a neat thing that you can do with Blender is I can actually hide my tiger for now. I don't need the tiger right this moment. What I need to do is I need to start cutting away at my fish's head, which sounds like a strange statement, but you know how it goes. So I'm going to focus in on my fish, but then I'm going to pick my cube. And I'm actually going to rotate my cube. Now, you can do this really precisely to get it at a nice 45-degree angle. You could also instead just click on the cube, press R, and rotate around. It's up to you which one you do. And actually, I'm going to scale down my cube a bit as well. You may or may not have to do that. Click G to grab, and I want to rotate it a little bit more. There. Click G to grab again, and that looks like the type of cut I want. I'm just trying to get it so I'm taking the eyes out, but I'm preserving the gills, I'm preserving the fins, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the tiger. I'm going to take a Boolean modifier. Then I'm going to use the dropper to pick on the cube. And that will tell it to modify based off of that. If you want to, you can also click on the object as well, and you can click it off of a drop-down menu. I kind of like using the dropper because I can see what I'm doing in that case. Okay, so I've got my fish. There we go. And that looks about right to me. So I'm going to apply the Boolean modifier. Before I do that, I'm just going to show you how the intersect looks. The intersect you're going to see is just going to be the other way around. So personally, I like working with difference because it means I can see outside of what I'm cutting out. But you can do it with intercept as well if you really want to. I'm going to apply this. And then I'm going to get rid of this cube. And then I'm going to turn my tiger back on. And what we can see now is that we've got some pretty good overlap. We can work with this. Next thing we are going to do, I'm going to grab my tiger head and I'm going to line it up with my fish. And I'm actually going to look at this from all sides to see, do I have everything roughly where I want it to be? Top looks good. It's actually not too bad, but I do have these side bits sticking out. You can see that I've got a bit of the tiger's head that's sticking out, and I don't want that. I also think I'm going to just scale it up a little bit. So now when I do that, I'm going to have to scale it and then move it again. That's a little bit too big. So this does take a little bit of eyeballing and a bit of practice, but it's all good. Next thing I want to do is I actually want to get rid of this stuff that's sticking out. There is a way for me to do that pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, how do I want to do this? I see I've got that stuff sticking out, so I'm going to go over to edit mode and I'm going to make sure that my X-ray is on. Now the reason that I want X-ray on is so that when I select this, I'm going to select it on both sides. And I can actually then scale these vertices inwards. So all I did is I pressed the S button, and that's just letting me drag these in a bit. And what I want to do with this, ooh, and I did that a bit too much, I think. Oh no, that's actually perfect. So what I did is I actually just dragged in a bunch of the vertices so that there's within the object. They're within the fish's body. So when I Boolean this together, what's going to happen is that those are going to end up on the inside of the Boolean object. So it's just going to read as one object. And then when we smooth it over, it's going to make it all look quite nice. I'm going to do the same thing because I got a little corner here that I need to scale in as well. So I'm just going to the back view here and I'm just going to press S and I'm going to drag these in a little bit. I don't need to do it a lot because we don't want to mess up the stuff on the outside too much. We want to keep that nice fur that we've got. And there's just one more little spot I got to get on this. So we just need a little bit of patience. Okay, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm actually dragging over so I know which vertices it is that I'm moving, that I'm hitting X-ray, and then I'm going to select them again. I am going to go a little bit conservative on it so that when I scale this in, I'm not dragging too much of the other vertices as well. Turn X-ray off, and that looks beautiful. Okay, last thing we got to do is we're going to Boolean this together, and then we're going to get to do some sculpting. So In TinkerCAD, what you'd do is you'd group two objects together and that would merge them into one. In Blender, this is also a Boolean modifier. It's just an interaction between two objects. So it doesn't matter if you start with the fish or the lion. We're going to start with whichever one we want and we're going to change it to union. The reason we're changing it to union is that union's going to combine it together. Now you might notice, and if you're working on Roll App, your computer might hate you a little bit for this. It's going to look weird like that. This is okay. Nothing's wrong here. If I grab this and move it, that did not work the way it was supposed to. Okay, I'm going to apply the modifier and then grab it. Okay, I've applied my modifier. Now if I grab it, the reason that it looks weird is because you have two perfectly overlapping objects, because the Boolean modifier actually saves the old one. So I'm actually going to rename my tiger now into Shachihoko. I'm going to spell it right, because now I have something that looks kind of like a Shachihoko. And this is where a lot of us got with our Thingiverse. So this is just combining the two objects together. All of this stuff we'd be able to do in TinkerCAD. Works the exact same way. Next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take this over into sculpt mode and smooth it out so it looks like it's one organic piece.